But after the show, we had our post show with Top Tier Taquan. Shout out to Taquan.
Yeah, shout out to Taquan. Taquan's the man.
And we played Is It Racist?
Oh, yes. Okay, I remember what we're talking about.
So,
we played it multiple times. Kate never gets involved.
We did. So we actually covered both times on this podcast.
We covered
Rickie.
two different things, I think.
Different
you
things.
asked me, is it racist?
Yeah.
You're like, Christian, you're black, you're Puerto Rican. That counts for something. Is it racist?
It counts for something. So, Rickie, I don't know if you heard the whole episode of what you heard, but...
No, I saw the TikTok clip today, this
morning.
Just
TikTok clip? All right, so... I'll let you rebut. We're not going to go back and forth, and we're going to let Sleeping Dogs live from there. But
why don't you, talk about tell the audience what the question was.
What the question was? So the question was, well, the first one was about Clarence Thomas doing blackface. No, not Clarence Thomas doing blackface. A black kid making his skin darker to look like Clarence Thomas. And the question was, is it racist?
Yeah.
The other one was the firing of Minneapolis teachers. They were firing the white teachers first when the union agreed to it. And they didn't base it off tenure. They based it off equity. And they wanted their
but you have to be specific. Racial color equity, not...
Yes, color equity.
You know what I mean?
So they want their teachers to be more representative of their student body.
Of a student population,
right,
yeah.
Which
this one we didn't really argue about. We argued about the Clarence Thomas one.
We did argue about the Clarence Thomas one because I was just like, at that point, Rickie, I was like, okay, we're going to talk about this. We're just going to throw out the definition of racism because we're not going to agree on it. But that is what you rebutted to on the TikTok video when I pretty much said that I just disagree with the power structure definition when it comes to racism, which you do not. And you're going to eloquate your point better than I can. So please, what do you got to say about this topic? The floor is yours.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I know what first started our initial conversation with the Clarence Thomas thing. He said, is racist? And I said, it's not racist. It's more colorist than anything, which I know Christian spoke on on another episode as well, because I also did see that clip as well where you talked about colorism. Highest rated
video, by the way.
Of course it is.
By far. By far, dude.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And I said, clearly by definition, black people can't be racist. I know your argument was that, it sounds like it's, being defeatist and victim blaming. And to that I say, and don't take this the wrong way, but you can't tell the oppressed how to feel about the oppressor.
Correct.
Number one.
No,
number two, when you look from an English language perspective, racism connotes system. So racism inherently is a systemic problem. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, you could define racism, or I define racism, and it is in a dictionary definition of racism as socio-political and economic systems by the dominant race using those systems to oppress lower minority races, essentially. And so by that definition, I say, yes, Black people cannot be racist. They can be prejudiced, and racism and prejudice are different. More so, again, focusing on the ism, meaning it's systemic. Prejudice and people being prejudiced or discriminatory doesn't necessarily have to be systemic. Racism inherently, by definition, that I use is systemic.
Really put me in a box here.
Yeah, okay.
It's like, by the definition.
I'll give one.
That was very well put.
It was very well put. I told you, man. Rickie's fucking smart. He's a smart guy, and he's very well spoken.
He used the definitions.
I will say systemically, I would say you're correct. It is
right.
It is very, very difficult, if not in the current state, impossible for systemically someone who is not white to be racist to a white person. Systemically, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think that's very hard to find an example of, if not impossible.
Really? It's hard to find a systemic racism.
No, I'm saying for the other way around. The other way around.
Oh, you mean for
a minority to do it against a white person?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Oh yeah. It's definitely very, very hard to find an example.
I was like, I can pull out 10 for you right now.
I could find multiple, but I believe there's a broader definition than just systemic. And one way this guy put on me on TikTok with Century is just like, yeah, there's systemic and there's also name calling.
If somebody says a racial slur, you're gonna say that's not racist. You're gonna, like in that example, you can't really throw the definition of in context to it being systemic. You can say a racist thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And like for the example of the I guess what you're saying is the distinction is between what you're calling it. So like the example of like
Sure.
the teachers being fired for being white, that's kind of racist, you know, but I guess you would call that discrimination as opposed to, you know,
Yes, I would call
racism based off
discrimination.
the systemic context of it's not systemic. But in that example, it is kind of systemic because I don't know the specifics. Will, if it was a public school system or if it was an individual school.
I believe it was public.
So that is that is, you know, the school system in that town. You know, in a way, I mean, not even in a way, oppressing, you know, white teachers. It sounds hilarious, but
you'd have to analyze the system,
right?
I feel like you would have to analyze the system to get a more base. Like, is it to get to the true core? Like,
well, I guess
is this
for
really
you,
racist?
is it the reason behind it? Like, is it a racist reason? Is it just motivated by hate? But in that example that Will was talking about with the teachers, it's not motivated by hate. It's motivated by racial.
There's no need to oppress. Yeah.
Right.
So I kind of get what you're saying. I still don't think it's right, you know, to fire teachers just because they're white.
I think it's a funky situation the way that it reads. That's why I really want to get to the nitty gritty.
I mean, because these people, they're people. Yeah. They're out of work just based off them being white.
Well, they're gonna
instead of no colors, it's like no whites. You know, no whites here.
They're gonna sue someone, and they're gonna win big.
They're gonna win.
The thing in that particular instance for me that got me thrown for a loop was the union. The fact that the union agreed to it.
That's why I'm wondering how is it explained to the union and what what kind of under the table agreements were made before this came.
Yeah. Because if I'm a teacher, do I sue the union or the school or both?
Are you eliminating people based on, because if you have tenure, it's really hard to get rid of them.
Right.
You know,
so like, they said tenure didn't matter.
Oh yes, okay, I remember that now.
That was part of the agreement. Tenure didn't matter. Now, yeah. So I don't know. It's weird. We could go back and forth all day and look into it, but this podcast is going to be so much more of this random ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Rickie, I'm glad you got to air your piece.
We're live. We're live, right?
We are live.
We are live, yeah.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, I love talking about race with Rickie because it's at the end of the day, it's fun, and I know there's only one thing I can say to make us not be friends anymore. I'm not going to cross that line.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah.
I feel like it's political.
Yeah. No, as long as you learn something from me and you get gain like maybe a broader perspective on things, and I've done my job.
Yeah, no, and that's why I like talking to you about a lot of different things, because I appreciate your perspective because, like I've said multiple times, you are a college-educated, master's level, very intelligent, wise person that I can talk to with pretty much anything about, and I would get a unique perspective.